in many counties, well, programs here, so engaging people on the streets who have a difficult.
I think someone on the line may not be muted.
Okay. Good morning and welcome. Can you hear me? Do I have it on?
You're open to the phones, yes.
So we are only able to have a limited number of people watch and participate in the hearing in person. We do have a few different options for witnesses today, for witnesses and testimony today. Today in room 4202, we are having a physical distance in-person hearing. In this space, we can only accommodate 11 members, a minimal contingent of staff, and a limited number of public and media, so we can maintain 6 feet of spacing. There are also strict physical distancing protocols for the public to enter and leave the Capitol and for those here today in the hearing. If any member of the public in the room would like to testify on a bill, please raise your hand and I will ask you to approach the microphone at the appropriate time. I would ask that the public not touch the microphone. You can exit the hearing room once you are done testifying or return to your seat. Please be sure to observe physical distancing upon leaving the Capitol, including limiting elevator use to 1 person at a time. We will also use a moderated telephone system through which any witness can testify on a bill. The call-in number for this hearing is 877-692-8957, and the access code is 131-54202. You can also find this number on the Assembly Revenue and Taxation Committee website as well as on your TV screen. If you are calling in, please plan to do so as the author of the bill you're testifying on is beginning their presentation. The operator on the line will give you instructions on how to be placed in queue based on whether you're support or opposing a bill. If you are calling in, please eliminate all background noise. This includes muting your live stream broadcast and your smart devices to reduce the sound distortion. Please also be advised that if you are a main witness providing testimony for or against a bill, you will remain on a live line and will need to mute yourself until you are called on to speak. If you're having any problems with the moderated phone service, you can call the committee at 916-319-2098, and my staff will be there to try to help you. I also want to note that we are accepting written testimony through the position letter portal on the committee website. Thank you for bearing with us as we all implement methods to continue to serve the people of California while also being mindful and respectful of the public health concerns we are all facing. Now, before we take up our bills, I'd like to go over a few additional housekeeping announcements. Assemblymember Gloria has been appointed to fill in for Assemblymember Quirk for today's hearing. We are sorry Dr. Quirk can't be here with us today, but we are happy to welcome Assemblymember Gloria. Assemblymember Melendez has been removed from the committee, and Assemblymember Vopel is filling that vacancy for this hearing only. We have 2 items on our consent calendar. Specifically, our consent calendar comprises of file item 7, AB 3372, and file item 8, AB 3373. We will take 2 primary witnesses in support and 2 primary witnesses in opposition or with concerns. These witnesses will have 2 minutes each to provide their testimony. All subsequent witnesses should state their name, their organization, and their position on the bill only. We will be hearing bills in the order shown on our agenda. Finally, a brief word about the limited number of bills we are taking up. As chair, my policy has been to hear every bill absent of extraordinary circumstances. Obviously, COVID-19 pandemic has changed everything. Most of the bills we hear in this committee directly impact the state and local revenues, and it is my responsibility to chart a prudent course while California faces the twin challenges of the pandemic and its economic fallout. Put simply, any bill that reduces general fund revenue was thoroughly scrutinized and most were not set for a hearing. This decision was not made lightly. It was made to reflect the reality we currently find ourselves in. It looks like we have a quorum. Mr. Ruff, will you please call the roll?
Burke?
Here.
Burke here. Bro? Here. Bro here. Chu? Here. Chu here. Gray? Levine? Mays? Mullen? Petrie-Norris? Petrie-Norris here. Gloria? Luce Rivas? Luce Rivas here. Vopel? Vopel here. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And before we call our first witness, I do want to say we're sorry. Again, I want to say we're sorry that Dr. Cork was not able to participate in the hearing today. We have extended him the offer of providing any sort of testimony or any sort of questions that he has on bills to us in advance because his input has always been very valued in this committee. So with that, let's start with file item 1, AB 2989. Dr. Arambulo, you're free to open when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I am here today to present on AB 2989 regarding community blood banks. Community blood banking is one of the behind-the-scenes pillars of first response. Yet in California, in-state blood donor testing for laboratory assets have declined over the last 2 decades. California is the only state that imposes state sales tax on blood donor testing, reagents, equipment, and supplies. Only 2 donor testing laboratories remain operational in the state: the Central California Blood Center, which is in Fresno, and the Stanford Blood Center in Palo Alto. All other blood banks now send their samples to out-of-state laboratories for testing, partly due to the increase of in-state costs with sales tax. The reduced number of blood testing facilities within the state raises public health concerns and presents a crisis in the event of a major homeland security or mass casualty event. As we now know all too well, blood banks across the state are experiencing critical needs during the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 50 blood drives have been canceled in Northern California, leading to a severe shortage in blood. The lack of adequate facilities to screen blood donations makes the public vulnerable to the blood product availability. With the only 2 donor testing labs functioning in the state, there is a serious concern for delayed access to needed blood supplies for transfusions and transferring blood supplies across state lines. AB 2989 would exempt sales and use tax on laboratory equipment and chemical reagents used by a licensed blood bank to test voluntarily donated human blood. This bill seeks to exempt equipment, chemicals, and reagents and quality control materials that are specifically required to perform FDA and California mandated screening tests to assure the safety of voluntarily blood, platelets, and plasma donations for transfusion. The exemptions will provide vital cost relief to the remaining 2 centers that perform in-state donor testing on blood donations, helping these labs to remain viable. This exemption may also encourage other California blood centers to resume blood donor testing in our state. Blood centers in California that collect blood for transfusion are non-profit organizations. Any cost relief from the exemption would benefit public health and would help to contain costs. Here to testify on the phone in support is Christopher Staub with the Central California Blood Center, as well as Harpreet Sandhu with the Stanford Blood Center.
Move the bill.
We have a motion by Bro, a second by Petrie-Norris. I understand there are 2 primary witnesses. I would ask the moderator to connect us first with Mr. Staub.
Mr. Staub, your line is open.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, my name is Christopher Staub. I'm the President and CEO of the Central California Blood Center in Fresno, and I support AB 2989. Central California Blood Center has maintained and upgraded its high-complexity blood donor testing laboratory through 6 decades, serving the Central Valley communities and blood centers around the state and nation. We employ about 8 clinical laboratory scientists, as well as about 12 laboratory technicians. Having our lab in-house helps us maintain rapid access to donated blood supplies for our hospitals. Having our laboratory has enabled us to respond rapidly when the FDA requested that we produce COVID-19 convalescent plasma, and we became the first blood center in the nation to produce pathogen-inactivated COVID convalescent plasma to bring hope to patients with COVID-19. The pandemic has stressed the bottom line of our nonprofit organization. I'd like to comment on some questions raised, whether the proposed exempted supplies, equipment, and reagents could be used for other purposes, whether the scope of the exemptions could be inadvertently too broad. The answer is no. The FDA regulations on blood donor screening are very specific. Reagents equipment used for screening blood donations are specifically licensed by the FDA solely for this purpose. It's important to clarify the narrow scope of the items being exempted, because when the narrow scope is understood, it explains, I believe, the disparity between our estimates of revenue loss to the state of between $400,000 to $450,000 a year, and the higher losses suggested by the committee assessment. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your time and consideration of this important bill, which would certainly help level the playing field by exempting these very specific items from sales and use tax in California, just as other blood donor testing labs have this advantage in other states of our nation. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And if the moderator would now connect us to Mr. Sandhu.
Mrs. Sandhu, your line is open.
Madam Chair and members, my name is Harpreet Sandhu, and I am the CEO and Executive Director of Stanford Blood Center. I support AB 2989. Stanford Blood Center has maintained a highly skilled donor infectious disease testing laboratory since the Blood Center's beginning in 1978. Our donor testing laboratory operation allows us to keep jobs in our local community for both licensed lab professionals as well as on-the-job trained employees who support lab operations. Our donor testing laboratory operations allows us to provide the FDA-mandated testing day in and day out to ensure timely and adequate supply of life-saving blood products in our local community without having to face the risks associated with outsourcing this testing, including inclement weather, lost samples, airline delays, which affect the availability of these life-saving blood products. In addition to supporting the routine operations, during times of very difficult health challenges in our community, including the AIDS epidemic and the current COVID-19 global pandemic, our lab allows us to respond quickly to the needs of patients and to the scientific data and learnings by implementing relevant testing, because we have the infrastructure and the licensed professionals to do so. For example, we are the first and only blood center in North America to perform SARS-CoV-2 nucleic acid testing on blood donors. Between the Stanford Blood Center and the Central California Blood Center donor testing labs, our state has the ability to test and release blood products in the times of disaster events, such as September 11, 2001, when ground and air travel was extremely restricted. While our labs are not built for large volume, we would be able to handle the testing across the state of California in these times to allow the most critical blood products to be tested and released for the most critical patients to ensure their safety is not compromised. The estimated annual savings for Stanford Blood Center are approximately $250,000 annually if this exemption may be approved. and this is similar to the estimated savings for Central California Blood Center. So total impact of approximately $500,000 to the state. This would allow us to have some parity with the testing labs in other states, as well as other California blood centers who now send their testing out of state and are not subject to this expense. With the help of this exemption described in this bill, Stanford Blood Center intends to keep our donor testing lab as an integral part of our operation for the good of our patients, our local community, and the state of California at large to provide this critical health care service in the event of unplanned disasters and or mass casualty events. I ask for your support of this important measure. Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize, Ms. Sandu. If the moderator will now open up the main line for any additional supporting testimony.
Thank you. If you are in support of this, please press 1 then 0 on your phone. An operator will answer your line and your comment will be taken in order. Again, if you are in support, please press 1 then 0 at this time. We do have a comment in queue. One moment. We'll go to line 26. 26, your line is open. In 26, are you in support of this bill? One moment, please.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Fred Noteware representing Stanford Healthcare in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional witnesses in support on the phone line?
If there are, you may press 1 and then 0 at this time. Further phone lines in queue.
We have one witness in the room. Feel free to move to the mic. Nope, never mind. All right, so then can we move to our witnesses? I understand we have one primary witness in opposition. Would the moderator please connect us now with Samantha Corbin from the California Tax Reform Association?
Madam Chair, members, Samantha Corbin with the California Tax Reform Association. We do appreciate the effort of the chair and the committee staff to limit the number of bills heard in this committee to protect the state's delicate revenue base as we stare down the barrel of another recession. Just last week, of course, the May revise was released with significant cuts to a variety of healthcare priorities and programs that were proposed. As the analysis rightfully notes, the state sales and use tax base, a traditionally significant revenue source for the state, has been in decline for some time now. As Californians purchase fewer items and are unable to patronize brick and mortar locations to purchase tangible products, this vital revenue source is only expected to further decline. Tax incentives, including an exemption such as this, are intended generally to incentivize behavior that would not otherwise occur. Given the enormous motivation of blood banks to perform appropriate due diligence and the public health implications of a failure to do so, we believe it's unlikely that 2989 will result in activities that would not otherwise already occur, but in fact are actually necessary to protect public health. The reality is that blood centers are already responsible for performing a significant number of these tests for items such as syphilis, HIV, and even more recently, West Nile and Zika virus, which were added to their federal requirements. As a final note, the proponents did mention in their testimony that they believe there is a disparity between the blood bank's estimated costs and the potential revenue impact provided by the state. To the extent that relief is truly necessary to support some of California's blood banks in meeting the additional testing demands, specifically due to COVID-19, the author might instead consider a grant program narrowly tailored to ensure that nonprofit testing can occur at these sites. Thank you.
If the moderator would now open the main line for any additional opposition.
Thank you. If your position is in opposition, please press 1 and then 0 on your telephone keypad. no lines in this queue, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee?
So I want to thank the author for bringing this bill, and I would agree with your assertion that it does incentivize behaviors that are incredibly important, I would argue, for California at any point in time, and particularly now in the midst of this pandemic. So very happy to support today.
Dr. Rambula, before you close, I want to note that we actually have a revised fiscal estimate for this bill. Specifically, this bill is estimated to result in a revenue loss of $3.1 million for year 2020 to 21 and $6.2 million for year 2021 to 2022. With that said, Dr. Rambula, would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for an aye vote, and thank you, Madam Chair.
The motion is due pass to appropriation. Mr. Ruff, please call the roll.
Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro? Aye. Bro, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Gray? Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Mays? Mullen? Aye. Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris? Aye. Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Luce Rivas? Aye. Luce Rivas, aye. Vopel? Aye. Vopel, aye. That bill has 8 votes.
That measure passes. File item 6 has been pulled by the author, AB 2799. What did you want? David.
Get Mark.
Levine.
Get Mark. You got it? You got it?
We got- Next up, file item 2, AB 2626, Assembly Member Bauer Kahan. Welcome. Proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I want to start by thanking the committee staff and the chairwoman for her partnership on this bill. Today, I'm here to present AB 2626. The COVID-19 pandemic has fundamentally changed the landscape of education here in California and across the nation. Almost overnight, schools were closed and children were sent home to learn remotely. But there were few resources available for students who didn't own a laptop or have access to the internet. The pandemic further exacerbated and highlighted the basic inequality of the digital divide experienced by many students and families. 1 in 5 California students, approximately 1.2 million students, lack broadband or computer to access their distance learning. The problems are particularly widespread in rural areas, where only 34% of households are subscribed to an internet service, compared with 78% in urban areas. This bill seeks to assist in bridging the digital divide by exempting public schools from state sales tax when purchasing critical equipment associated with distance learning. This includes laptops, tablets, mobile hotspots, software, and other necessary technology needed to ensure a student is able to participate in distance learning. This will allow school districts to make purchases to transition to distance learning without paying these upfront costs that could otherwise prevent them from closing the digital divide. In light of the governor's announcement last week in his May revise that we could see a substantial hit to our education budget, this bill could not be timelier. We do not know when school instruction will resume as normal, although as a school parent, I hope it's soon. However, we need to act now to ensure our students are able to receive their education and that they don't fall behind. AB 2626 helps close this digital divide by reducing costs on communication technology and devices purchased by our school districts. It will allow for equitable access to distance learning in California schools. Today, to testify in support of the bill are Amy Miller and Megan Rouse from the Dublin Unified School District to highlight the challenges that their district is facing.
Would the moderator please open the main line to, for our primary witness in support?
Amy Miller, your line is open.
Okay. Do I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Miller, and I'm a school board trustee at the Dublin Unified School District. Thank you to the chair and the committee members for allowing me to speak about Dublin Unified School District's experience with transitioning to distance learning and how timely AB 2626 is. Our school district served over 12,500 students this year, and that number will jump to 13,000 plus next year. We have 12 schools in our system and have begun construction on a new high school, which will be completed around 2024. The COVID-19 pandemic forced us and every district in the state to transition to remote learning without proper time to plan or budget, which required us to retool our staff, our students, and our classrooms to continue providing high-quality educational experiences and remain focused on our mission to ensure every student becomes a lifelong learner. Since April, our school district has purchased over 6,500 laptops and provided over 65 students with mobile hotspots to ensure they stay on track to complete their coursework and not fall behind. This was not only a logistical challenge for staff, but was a financial burden as well. In total, we spent a total of $1.5 million so far on technology to meet the demands of distance learning in our district. Not only is the upfront cost of these electronics and technology expensive, but the upkeep and the replacement costs will be a challenge for our district in the future. We are fortunate to have passed bond measures. However, we have no shortage of facility needs beyond software for our growing district. Our experience is not unique. School districts across California are facing similar challenges and need help wherever we can to ensure our staff and students are well equipped with the materials they need to teach and learn. We all know there are massive inequities across the state. This digital divide only serves to perpetuate those. AB 2626 will help alleviate some of this burden. Anything that can financially assist districts to provide the needed learning materials for their students is a win-win. We are happy to support this bill and appreciative to the Assembly member for bringing forth legislation that will provide added relief. Thank you.
Thank you. And was there an additional primary witness?
Megan Rouse should be on the line. Can the operator hear us?
I do not have that line connected on AT&T side.
We have a motion by Mr. Bro and a second by Assemblymember Petrie-Norris. Okay. Moderator, will you open the main line for support, please?
Thank you. If you are in support of this bill, please press 1, then 0 on your telephone keypad. Again, if your position is support, please press 1 and then 0. No lines in queue at this time.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? Oh, but I could also do opposition. Is there any? Would the moderator please open the line for any opposition?
If your position is in opposition, you may also press 1 and then 0. Again, the command is 1, 0. It will be just a moment, please. Madam Chair, we have the line of Megan Rouse located.
Oh.
Would you like me to open it?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Megan Rouse, and I am a trustee with the Dublin Unified School District. As you've heard from my colleague, AB 2626 will provide relief. We support this bill and encourage you to support it as well. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, our needs and those of our students have increased significantly. AB 2626 will provide some relief, and any relief to a strained system should be an obvious yes. However, the reality is districts need broad relief across the board. This bill represents a piece of that relief that is required. In order to open schools safely, we need to procure additional items and equipment. Unbudgeted, we need funds for these purchases. The money AB 2626 will save us can provide some of the funds needed to purchase: masks, hand washing stations, thermal scanning cameras and technology, to name a few. In order to open schools safely, we have to simultaneously plan for open, closed, and hybrid scenarios. Our teachers and staff have responded with remarkable flexibility, creativity, and heart. Your role as our legislators is to support their efforts with resources to maintain this journey and move forward. Schools and the economy are connected. Safe schools are critical. Students and teachers need to be safe at school, and families need to feel comfortable sending their kids to school. We should be investing more in education funding now, an opportunity to reset and make our communities healthy through students and education. AB 2626 is a solid first step. We need AB 2626 and more to demonstrate our collective commitment to our students and their future. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just check one more time with the moderator, just confirm that there is no opposition on the line.
I have a line. The command is 10, and we have line 37. Line 37, could you state your name, affiliation, and position, please?
Hi, Katie Hardiman with the California Teachers Association in opposition.
Thank you. If there are others, please press 1 and then 0. No further lines in queue.
All right, any comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none. Assemblymember, before you close, I just want to say a few words. First, thank you for being willing to work with us. The current pandemic has highlighted the inequity of the digital divide, as many students lack the essential tools to continue their education remotely with teachers and classmates. While obviously I am very mindful of the budgetary considerations, I really would like to thank you for adding me as a co-author. The digital divide's impact on continuing children's education during this public health crisis should remain among the forefront of our critical issues as we balance competing priorities and make very difficult decisions. With that, would you like to close?
I think that was my close. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Ruff, will you call the roll?
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro?
Aye.
Bro, aye. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Gray? Levine? Levine, aye. Mays? Mullen? Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris? Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Luce Rivas? Luce Rivas, aye. Vopel?
Aye.
Vopel, aye. That bill has 8 votes.
That bill is out.
At this point, the chair is going to take up her 2 items. File item 3, AB 2247, and file item 4, AB 2660. Madam Chair, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and members. I'm pleased today to present AB 2247, a simple and taxpayer-friendly proposal sponsored by the Franchise Tax Board. The FTB recently learned that the Internal Revenue Service has stopped issuing a renewing federal individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN, for non-resident dependents living in Canada or Mexico. This has prevented certain Californian taxpayers from claiming the dependent exemption credit for their otherwise qualifying non-resident dependent. This is because current state law strictly requires a tax return to include either a Social Security number or ITIN for each dependent for the credit to be allowed. AB 2247, which is sponsored by the FTB, would very simply give these taxpayers the option of providing alternative identifying information for purposes of claiming the dependent exemption credit. With that, I turn things over to the FTB staff, which I understand will be testifying remotely today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the moderator please connect us with Annette, the Director of the Franchise Tax Board's Legislative Services Bureau?
Okay, that line is open.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name, as you mentioned, is Annette Kunze, and I'm the Legislative Director for the Franchise Tax Board. On an ongoing basis, FTB identifies possible ideas for legislative proposals that can ease tax administration, including the one presented before you today. First, I want to express sincere gratitude to Chairwoman Burke for carrying this proposal so that taxpayers are able to maintain their current dependent exemption credits. Currently, as mentioned, dependent exemption credits are allowed for those dependents with Social Security numbers and individual taxpayer identification numbers, also known as ITIN. Due to recent changes at the federal level, some taxpayers may no longer be able to obtain items for their dependents who are not physically present in California, but residents of Canada or Mexico. At the state level, what this means is taxpayers who are unable to obtain items will fail to meet the identification component. I just want to take a moment to clarify this proposal does not extend or expand any eligibility beyond what is currently existing, nor does it change the credit amount, but merely allows a mechanism to prevent denial of the dependent exemption credit for these otherwise qualified dependents. Additionally, taxpayers are still required to meet existing tests for the credit, for example, the support and other tests. What this proposal would do in summary is amend the Revenue and Taxation Code to allow a taxpayer an alternate method for providing identifying information. Absent a legislative change, FTB will be required to deny the dependent exemption credit for otherwise qualified dependents, thus treating similarly situated taxpayers differently. Staff estimates the cost to implement this proposal would be insignificant and absorbable. We respectfully thank you for your time and consideration, and again, thank you to Madam Chair. At this point, I'm happy to help with any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kunze. Would the moderator please open the main line for any additional witnesses in support, if there are any?
Thank you. If there is support for this bill, please press 1 and then 0 on your telephone keypad. Lines in queue at this time.
Thank you, moderator. Moderator, would you please open the main line if there are any witnesses in opposition?
Thank you. If your position is in opposition of this bill, please press 1 and then 0. No lines in queue at this time.
Thank you, moderator. I'll bring it back to the committee for any questions or comments. Seeing none. Madam Chair, would you like to close?
I respectfully request and I vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff. Would you please call the roll?
We need a motion and a second.
Oh, need a motion. Moved by Mr. Chu. I'll second it. Mr. Ruff, please call
The
the roll.
motion is due pass to appropriations. Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro?
Aye.
Bro, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Gray? Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Mays? Aye. Mays, aye. Mullen? Aye. Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris? Aye. Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Luce Rivas? Aye. Luce Rivas, aye. Vopel? No. Vopel, no. That bill has 8 votes.
Okay, we'll keep it open for members to add on. The chair's second bill is file item 4, AB 2660. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It's my pleasure to also present to you today AB 2660, which grew out of a paper presented by a member of the tax section of the California Lawyers Association. International employees often travel to California on business for short periods of time, which give rise to a personal income tax obligation under existing law. These business travelers, however, are ineligible to apply for a Social Security number, which required for an employer to withhold and remit taxes via payroll. Additionally, only a very small number of these foreign employees file income tax returns on an individual basis. Because of the time and complexity involved in obtaining an individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN, AB 2660 proposes a novel and entirely voluntary solution to this problem. Specifically, this bill offers companies the option of filing a group return as a way to simplify and handle filings for the international travelers to California. In this way, the bill provides a significant benefit to the business community by easing tax compliance and administrative burdens for both companies and employees alike. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Lorraine Cohen with Deloitte, who will be testifying in support by phone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moderator, would you please connect us with Lorraine Cohen of Deloitte Tax, LLP?
My name is Lorraine Cohen, and I am a CPA and a tax partner at Deloitte in San Francisco, and I'm speaking in support of Assembly Bill 2660. as Chairman Burke outlined, under existing California law, employers are required to withhold and remit taxes via payroll for employees who perform services in California, including non-U.S. business travelers, but they're unable to do so. Because the employer cannot remit taxes through payroll, the employee needs to first obtain a tax ID number that I did mention in the previous bill, and pay the California taxes with a California tax return, which is currently a burdensome and costly process. There are so many steps, I can't even outline them for you today because it would not fit in the 2 minutes. This process takes months. So by the time they are able to file the California tax return and finally pay the California tax, their return is late, which results in penalties for late filing and late payment of tax. So how many people do you think are doing this? There could be an easier way. This bill would allow a U.S. company to opt to file on a voluntary basis a composite tax return in lieu of payroll reporting, in lieu of the employees obtaining items and filing California individual tax returns. This is similar to current California laws that allow partners and partnerships to participate in composite returns. Not only would this bill make it optional for a company to file this way, employees opt in on a voluntary basis to participate in the composite tax. This bill is a win-win for everyone. It would allow companies to remit taxes they were unable to, reduce the administrative burden for employees, and greatly simplify administration and enforcement for the franchise board. I advise companies on how to comply with business travel rules. There is significant interest from companies to comply and pay these taxes. This bill will enable them to do so efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Moderator, would please open the main line for any additional witnesses in support?
Thank you. If you are in support at this time, please press 1 and then 0. There are no lines in queue at this time.
Thank you. Moderator, would please open the line if there are any witnesses in opposition?
Thank you. If your position is in opposition, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. There are no lines in that queue. Please continue.
Thank you, Moderator. I'll bring it back to the committee. Are there any questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none. Madam Chair, would you like to close?
I respectfully request and I vote.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second. Ms. Rivas moves. Mr. Mullen seconds. Mr. Ruff, would you please call the roll?
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro?
Aye.
Bro, aye. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Gray? Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Mays? Aye. Mays, aye. Mullen? Aye. Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris? Aye. Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Luce Rivas? Aye. Luce Rivas, aye. Vopel? Aye. Vopel, aye. That bill has 9 votes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We'll now take up file item 5, AB 2528 by Assemblymember Deep. Assemblymember, come on up when you're ready. And I understand we also have Assemblymember Gibson here to speak on the bill if you'd like. Oh, I don't know if you're supposed to come up. I think you have to wait there for social distancing purposes. Yeah. Okay. Assemblymember, whenever you're ready.
Madam Chairs and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to present this bill along with my joint author, Assemblymember Mike Gibson, on AB 2528, the timely written tax advice. Chairwoman Burke, I want to sincerely thank you and your committee staff for working closely with my office on this important legislation. I want to share with the committee that I'm aware of the technical concerns that was raised. And if this bill gets out of committee today, I'm committed to working with committee staff to address and resolve these concerns. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many of the taxpayers we represent are facing uncharted waters when it comes to their tax situations. Fortunately, with the Katz-Harris Taxpayer Bills of Rights and the Revenue and Taxation Code Section 6596, existing law allows taxpayer to be able to request binding written tax advice specific to their income tax or sales and use tax situations. And currently, any advice that is provided verbally, in person, or over the phone is considered informal and non-binding. And that is why binding written advice is valuable, because taxpayer are relieved of taxes, penalty, and interest, even if the advice is erroneous, as long as the taxpayer follow the written advice received. However, there have been instances where written advice would take years, or where state tax department would have no record of the written advice being requested. This causes an undue hardship on taxpayer trying to comply with the law in good faith. In 2019, the Independent and Impartial Office of the Tax Appeals found in one case where a taxpayer acted in good faith and took responsible and prompt action to timely comply with their tax obligation, but the Franchise Tax Board did not respond to their request for written advice. Unfortunately, the Office of Tax Appeals found that after 2 years, no written advice was received, and the FTB was neither timely nor helpful when it came to the request for written advice. AB 2528 will provide certainty and better customer service for the taxpayer we represent. This bill would require the FTB and the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration to do two things when taxpayer requests binding written advice: send a letter to the taxpayer acknowledging receipt of the taxpayer's request for written advice within 30 days, and provide that binding and written advice within 180 days from the date of the request was received. And finally, there's as of this moment, we have no known opposition to AB 2528, and the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the California Taxpayer Association, as well as the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association support this bill. I'm available for any question after Assemblymember Gibson have had the chance to make his presentation.
Thank you. Assemblymember Gibson. Mr. Ruff, we have a motion by Mr. Bro and a second by Petrie-Norris. Mr. Gibson, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. Want to say thank you very much to Assemblymember Deep for bringing us Assembly Bill 2528. I want to thank my colleague for his foresight in terms of this particular issue. In addition, Assemblymember Deep and I personally have experience working for the California State Board of Equalization that has now become the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. As this committee well know, that sales tax law can be quite complicated and confusing. While most basic questions can be answered over the phone, in person, for taxes, or even through a tax department website, binding written advice can be requested specifically to the circumstances of the taxpayer. But what's good about that if, in fact, you can't get a written response, something in writing? And that's what this bill seeks to do. This bill asks basically for the tax board to provide something in writing to the taxpayers. Again, this will cut down on ambiguity, misconfusion, and also empower the taxpayer to do the right thing. And so AB 2528 is a simple bill that I'm happy to be a co-author of this particular bill, and respectfully ask when I vote. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gibson. I understand we have two primary witnesses in support. Would the moderator please connect us with Dustin Weatherby of the California Taxpayers Association?
And Dustin Weatherby is not connected at this point.
All right. Moderator, is there any other witness, primary witness in support connected at this time?
At this time.
All right. Can we have the... Can we open the main line?
Madam Chair, am I on the?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, Madam Chair, am I on the line? Okay, I wasn't aware my line was open. Madam Chair, members, good afternoon. David Wolf with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Members, it's my understanding this bill has support on both sides, so I'm just going to ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator, is there any additional witnesses in support?
We have Dustin Weatherby connected now.
Thank you. Mr. Weatherby?
Mr. Weatherby,
Can you hear me,
your line is
Madam
open.
Chair?
I can hear you now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. So good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Dustin Weatherby with the California Taxpayers Association, here in support of AB 2528. AB 2528 would require the Franchise Tax Board and CDTFA to respond to written advice requests from taxpayers within 180 days of receipt by the respective agency. Under current state statute, advice provided to a taxpayer verbally, whether in person or over the phone, is considered informal and non-binding, meaning the taxpayer cannot solely rely on the accuracy of the advice received from the agencies, which leads to confusion from taxpayers who believe they were acting justly by reaching out to the agency in the first place. On the other hand, written advice can be relied upon in certain situations, leading to greater taxpayer compliance. When taxpayers request written advice, they are acting in good faith, taking proactive steps to ensure compliance with California's complicated tax laws. Many small business owners and taxpayers in California cannot afford to have or hire attorneys and accountants on staff to handle tax inquiries. Currently, there is no timetable for agencies to respond to such requests, leaving taxpayers in limbo and uncertainty. This bill simply ensures taxpayers receive advice in a timely fashion. CalTax would like to thank Assembly Members Deep and Gibson for carrying this important bill, and we respectfully request an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the moderator please open the main line for any additional witnesses in support?
And we will go to line 43. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Members of the committee, Kevin Pedrati, representing NFIB in support of the bill. Thank you.
And no further comments at this time.
Thank you. Would you please open the line for any opposition testimony?
And if there's any opposition testimony, please press 1-0 at this time. And no opposition testimony. Please continue.
Great. Comments and questions from the committee? Assemblymember Petrie-Norris.
Assembly members, thank you for bringing forth this important measure. It is a common sense step which adds transparency and improves the customer service experience for California taxpayers. Would love to be added as a co-author if you'll have me.
Of course.
Any additional comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, Assemblymember Deep, would you like to close?
Respectfully request your aye vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Ruff, will you call the roll?
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro? Aye. Bro, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Gray? Aye. Gray, aye. Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Mays? Aye. Mays, aye. Mullen?
We don't want to do it?
Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris?
I think we're doing consent.
Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Aye. Gloria, aye. Luce Rivas? Aye. Luce Rivas, aye. Vopel? Aye. Vopel, aye. That bill has 11 votes.
That bill has 11 votes. That item is out. We're going to move to the consent consent calendar. I have a motion by Bro, a second by Gloria. The consent calendar is made up of file item 7, AB 3372, and file item 8, AB 3373. Mr. Ruff, will you call the roll?
Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro? Aye. Bro, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Gray? Aye. Gray, aye. Mays? Aye. Mays, aye. Mullen? Aye. Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris? Aye. Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Aye. Gloria, aye. Luz Rivas? Aye. Luz Rivas, aye. Vopel? Aye. Vopel, aye. That bill has 11 votes.
The consent calendar passes. Now we'll move to the vote-only items. First item we'll take is file item 9, AB 2013 by Assemblywoman Irwin. I have a motion by Broke. I have a second by Petrie-Norris. The motion is due pass to appropriations. Mr. Ruff, will you please call the roll?
Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro? Aye. Bro, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Gray? Aye. Gray, aye. Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Mays? Aye. Mays, aye. Mullen? Aye. Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris? Aye. Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria? Aye. Gloria, aye. Luz Rivas? Aye. Luz Rivas, aye. Vopel? Aye. Vopel, aye. That has 11 votes.
That item passes. The second vote-only item is file item 10, AB 2058 by Assemblymember Gabriel. We have a motion by Mr. Bro, a second by Gloria. Mr. Ruff, will you please call the roll?
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Bro?
Aye.
Bro, aye. Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Gray?
Aye.
Gray, aye. Levine?
Aye.
Levine, aye. Mays?
Aye.
Mays, aye. Mullen?
Aye.
Mullen, aye. Petrie-Norris?
Aye.
Petrie-Norris, aye. Gloria?
Aye.
Gloria, aye. Luz Rivas?
Aye.
Luz Rivas, aye. Vopel?
Aye.
Vopel, aye. Has 11 votes.
That item passes. I will now call the bills for absentee members. File item 1, AB 2989. Mr. Ruff, please call the absentees.
Gray? Aye. Gray, aye. Mays?
Aye.
Mays, aye. Gloria?
Aye.
Gloria, aye. That bill has 11 votes.
That bill passes with 11 votes. File item 2, AB 2626. Mr. Ruff, will you please call the absentee members?
Gray?
Gray?
Mays?
Aye.
Mays, aye. Gloria? Gloria, aye. That bill has 10 votes.
That item passes with 10 votes. File item 3, AB 2247, Burke. Mr. Ruff, will you call the absentees?
Gray? Gray, aye. Gloria? Gloria, aye.
How are you?
It's 10 to 1.
Item passes 10 to 1. Moving to file item 4, AB 2660, Burke. Mr. Ruff, will you call the absentee vote members?
Gray? Aye. Gray, aye. Gloria?
Aye.
Gloria, aye. That bill has 11 votes.
That bill passes with 11 votes. File item 5, AB 2528. Mr. Ruff, will you call the absentee members?
No absentees on that item.
Moving to file item 7, AB 3372. Oh, no, that was a consent item. Let's go to the vote-only items. File item 9, AB 2013.
No absentees on that item.
Great. And file item 10, AB 2058.
No absentees on that item.
With that, I thank the moderator and the staff here in the building for today's hearing. And with that, we are adjourned.